All right, that looks like we've got quite a few new people in the last few minutes. So it's late enough. We'll get started. We are going to finish just a few minutes early, just so everybody's got an agenda. I actually have to take my mother-in-law to a doctor's appointment. So we'll finish up a few minutes early. So I have to get on the road to pick her up and have her there by 1:30 our time this afternoon. And then we will be back. Okay. I'll go through today. We're going to go through general updates first. So there's quite a bit on that. So this is what we've been doing the last month, and what's going on in the organization. There's quite a bit of that. Questions around that. And then the next pieces, there's some questions about Korea. And then we'll go into Medical and then an update on the EVS pieces. So for the past couple of weeks, we've had a general update. We've had quite a bit of people in Korea negotiating contracts, looking at various other things. I've had, we weren't silent about the information. It's no secret we had people, from Canada and everything in Korea talking for the last few weeks. I've had a lot of inquiries about specifics on what's going on over there. So again, some of the things I can't talk about on Discord, just for I need to keep repeating this because it keeps coming up apparently. Anything that's material, like specific financial information, I'm not allowed to discuss here. Or, other pieces of material, specific news, financial information is the obvious one. Basically, anything that we send out on press releases, specific numbers and dates on the NCA, buyback, specific financial information, further breakdowns of financial information, what's in upcoming contracts, what's being negotiated in upcoming contracts, whether real, materialized, not materialized, etc. I'm not allowed to talk about that here, as all of that is material. Okay? Material in the legal sense, meaning it has to be placed out for every one of our investors to get the information simultaneously. And unfortunately, this forum is not that. So if questions come in, wondering about those, I can't answer them. Okay? Now, for those that have been here a lot, you've probably heard that disclaimer quite a bit. Unfortunately, the questions keep coming in, so I have to say it for the people that asked this particular session. Now, that being said, let's get into the general information. So the team has been in Korea for the past couple of weeks. They're all getting back piecemeal right now. Some are already back. Some are on their way. And so we've already started. There was a couple PRs out in the last week or so about a few things that we'd already closed over there. Specifically some AI contracts, et cetera. And we're going to get into some of those questions in just a second. Now, additionally, there are a few other pieces that we rolled out as part of our strategies. For say Medical, we rolled out a piece there that are inherent to what we were doing over the past few weeks in Korea. So I will explain those during the Medical section, etc. Okay, so general information. One quick question that came in was about a few of the domains. So the question specifically was, why would one of our domains be? Why would DM control the domain they don't have access to? Honestly, it was just registered wrong. That's it. Excuse me one second. Sorry, I had to get some water. So no, that's just, the people using the same registrar for the domain. It got it's confused. So I'll have we put that forward, and anything that got misrepresented between that a certain domain will be fixed. There's nothing nefarious. It's just a clerical error. Um, not that big a deal. Okay, so a lot of questions have been coming in around what we've been doing with PRIA and news releases, IR, things like that. So we have engaged in an IR firm, and we just re-upped some of their contracts. PRIA is not the only person that's running around alone doing things. She's just the face of things, and the head person in there who coordinates that. She does have boutique firm behind her that has been working over the past few weeks, a little over a month actually. Gaining momentum, understanding the company, et cetera, building copy, building creative, and all that. Now, Priya's done a pretty good job in there for what we've asked her to do. And she's still going to be the face you see. But we do have a firm back there that is backing her, has been backing her. And if you looked at some of the releases and out there, there's a lot of writing in there and pieces that have gone out that they have helped with and assisted with. So that one is out, and we will be continuing those efforts going forward. And we are, we'll be building on those as we see what works, what doesn't work, etc. Now, again, so any of this time that we're talking about the investor relations and the public relations and stuff, I get a lot of questions around exactly, did you pay this firm this amount of money? Did you pay this firm this amount of money? Those are questions, again, that I can't answer, all right, on this particular forum. And those those types of stuff get released in financials and other statements that you can refer back to. So I can't answer those particular questions about who got paid what for IR firms on this forum. So a few of the things. Next question comes in the general space was about Andrew Yu and his role in the company. So Andrew stepped down a while back, personal issues. He had to take a step back from the company and what's going on. And, he's still on in an advisory role with DM. Like, we can talk to Andrew. Anybody at Datametrex that needs to can get a hold of him, and he still shows up and helps us all the time, right? So Andrew is still involved. He just can't perform the duties of the chairman at the moment. And Paul Haber has been performing those duties admirably for the past bit in his absence, and we don't expect that to change. Again, Andrew still is involved. He's still there helping us to the best of his ability, et cetera, et cetera. So he's still around. The next Smart Factory news releases and such. So we're going to go, the general stuff gets a little bit all over the place. Bear with me. So I want to try to get these out of the way at the beginning before we get down to the thing. So the questions become, are the Smart Factory releases and the stuff that we released related to, say, previous endeavors inside? Now, people mentioned these specifically, other contracts in the past. The short answer is yes. Now, so that means, these new contracts, and when you see us expanding into other areas, of different companies. For instance, we saw Latte Card not too long ago. And then, we saw smart factories not too long ago. When you see those types of things coming up, or those types of press releases, then, the previous work is related definitively in one sense that, okay, we did a good enough job to get into another division. Okay, that's one sense. The second sense is the tech. So there's the business execution piece, all right, which allows us to move into those, other areas, ripe with expansion. And the second piece is the tech. Now, the pieces of the tech, again, some of that's proprietary, some of it's patented. So we can't go into the details here. Those details will never get divulged. Probably not in PRs or anything like that. Some of that's trade secrets. So the ones that are super sensitive are all protected by copyright and trademark and patents, et cetera, all the legal stuff. Now, but as far as the tech is concerned, that's how we get in the doors, so how is one tech applicable to another? In the broad sense, mostly predictive analytics and predictive AI. Those are the pieces that are easily applicable across multiple verticals, multiple different techs. But there are other aspects of the AI and the systems that are applicable in there across different endeavors. This is a big technical term, but one of the things that gets passed around a lot is semantic dimension analysis. In layman's terms, what that means is reading the mood of a room from what they're saying, I guess is the best way to put it. So how to tell when narratives and conversations shift, when things change, where are the inflection points as to people's attitudes changing or endeavors change, what they're thinking about, their mood, their productivity, etc. All this can be gleaned from inside, from different aspects of people's communication, for instance, emails, text messages, etc. So that's the second piece that gets bantied around a lot as far as the tech is concerned. So the first, like I said, are predictive pieces, AI, etc., predictive AI. And the second pieces are, again, they're predictive in nature, but they're more around the mood and the semantic meanings of, what people are saying, etc. And this can be applied from an individual all the way up to, a division, or, as many people as as many messages as we can take in, millions of messages at a time. So you can characterize the nature of a whole division of your company, for instance, 100,000 people if you wanted to, and tell, hey, this group is doing well. Why are they doing well this time? They were doing poorly a month ago. What changed? We can look at things like that. Or this group is really accelerated. What's the catalyst? How do we apply that to other groups? We can look at things like that. But again, to prove out something like that, we say, that takes time. And we can, in any particular use case, it's going to take, minimum 6 months to prove out something like that. So that's what you see when we're landing those new contracts and moving into different properties or different areas of different companies. Is they've seen something they like. They've negotiated, starter contracts, I guess you would say, with us, and then we move forward. Those are just two of the pieces that get the most traction or the most visibility inside our negotiations in the AI. The other pieces all come into play. Don't get me wrong. Those are just the two most, I guess, high profile, is so to speak, and that's what's of interest when those people come knocking, or when we're talking about that. So, And then one question, and this one's fairly interesting, and we'll answer it with some concrete examples. It was basically, do we eat our own dog food? Uh, do we use our own engines and stuff to take a look at what we're doing, or look at different markets and things like that? Um, the short answer, absolutely. The long answer, absolutely. We do that all the time. In fact, that particular area is what led us into the markets in Korea, what led us, um, into the public or the private sector that we're into now. All right. So that was the first piece. So we took a look. We ran some data through private sector data through, because at the time, actually, let me back up. How do we do that? Um, you know, right years ago when we first tried to get this off the ground, that's exactly what we did. We took a look. We found some private sector areas that we thought we could address, and that's where we moved. That led to the Korean business we have, the business here, the business we brought back from Korea. All that was done with an initial pass of what are we missing and how could it be useful in other markets. Again, this was done both in the medical and the EV space. I've mentioned this several times here before, but we did run pilot programs around these for quite some time before we decided to jump into these two verticals. Those two particular pilots, were ran using our own tech and using some of, looking at the different data available in those verticals, and what can we do with our tech in those verticals that other people can't, or how do we get a leg up, et cetera. So we do that. How do we apply it? How do we learn from it? Well, in this case, we're using it as to, where do we want to go? And how do we want to build things moving forward? What other addressable markets are there? And how can we do that? So that's one of the cases where we use this internally. So now, and then not the last, but switching gears on this one, another question has come in, and it has to do with Korea announcing that they would like to do more work in the Canadian AI space. And that was true. So the president of Korea, for you guys who haven't seen it, went on a multi-stage trip between I believe it was the UK, the US, and Canada. If I want to, don't quote me on that. I have to go reread the article, but I believe he did that. And while he was in Canada, he met with, people, involved in computer science professors, deep learning professors, a couple institutions, economic development minister, et cetera. And, espoused an interest in working with Canadian companies in AI. And, really touted, Canada as a powerhouse in AIs and things we can do, breaking new ground, securing new positions in the global supply chain for AI technology and talent, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I don't talk to the president of Korea directly. Some people have actually asked me that. So no, the president of South Korea does not call me. So what he said, that's his own. He didn't consult me. That being said, we are a big part of this. We're in the middle of the Canadian-Korean AI connection. We went over there 2 years ago with this, and there was nothing there. And now, we're pulling in contracts, we're building business there, et cetera. So while not being, we're not a direct participant with the president of South Korea. I want to be very clear about that. That being said, we also believe that there is a strong connection there, and we are, building businesses around it and using that, to our advantage and helping to build Datametrex as a company. So his idea is correct. We're on board with that, and we will be helping in every way, shape possible to strengthen the ties between the two countries. And now that the governments are taking notice that this is real, it's not just the private sector. That's a good sign. So we can keep building on those relationships and get those moving forward. Okay. So okay. And the last question about this one, the TSX uplisting, nothing's changed. As soon as there's data on that, you guys will get it in a press release. Okay. Material information is not going to come down this channel on some, and we can discuss previously released material information, but there's nothing changed. Everything's submitted. We're waiting on either an opinion or what to do next. So that being said, everything over the past 18 months, I would say, with the government has taken about twice as long as expected, and it's still not clearing up. Case in point, I applied for a new Canadian passport like 5 months ago and still haven't heard back from them. But, again, that's frustrating to all of us. It's still there. As soon as it's material, or as soon as there's material news, it'll be in the news. Like, we'll give it. That's not something we can hold, or, at all. So as soon as it's there, we'll get it to you. Give me 2 seconds and we'll get some water and be right back. We'll move on to the next subject. Okay. So I believe I covered the contracts. Now we're going to go into the AI pieces. There's a few questions around it and what we're doing. So languages and such that are, covered inside Nexus Intelligence and Nexus Smart on the DM. First, right now, somebody asked about Portuguese and Brazil. We don't operate in Portuguese. That's not one of the languages we cover at the moment. Now, are we going to do Portuguese anytime soon? Probably not. It's not a high demand language, okay? And there's not a lot of coverage with it. You can cover Portugal and Brazil. I think then that's pretty much it. 2 dialects too, so 2 dialects to do. So no, Portuguese is not high on the list. Now, for some of the other languages, there's support. Some languages have actually partial support in there that we have been working with over the years, and some of them are more difficult than others. That's a different discussion. Now, how do languages get added? Languages generally get added for one of 2 reasons. One, there's an addressable market that we think we can tap with the language addition. That was one of the things we did in Korea, for example. It's also some of the languages we added to be able to tap into, different endeavors we did with NATO in Europe. And then the second one is, demand. Okay. So if there's a huge demand for a language coming from one or multiple partners, that's when they go in. So if there's an expansion that we think we can get, we'll do it. If there's, if there's a high demand for it, something that, that again goes back to that first piece. We know there's an addressable market if there's a high demand right there. So that's how those languages get added. And again, Portuguese is not happening right now. It's not on the priority list. We've got a few other things going on. So we won't be adding that one. Unless, now, that being said, if somebody came over and wanted us to do it and had a contract in hand, we'd do it. That's not an issue. But it's not a market that we're going after with that in the next couple of months or so. Okay, so Medi-Call. Let's get on to that. It's already 12:30. Still got a lot to cover. So people are questioning how does the billing work? How does it work between public health sector, private health sector, et cetera? So when we go to bill a Medi-Call, if the services are covered by provincial insurance, then it can be billed to provincial insurance. Okay, so your standard health care in Canada, up to the point of the amount they cover for the services. Okay, so if, for instance, a real world example, British Columbia says we cover, I don't know, and it's just made up, so don't take this as real numbers. I'm just making this up off the top of my head. If British Columbia says we charge, we will cover up to $100, I don't know, for headache pills. Then if our headache pills cost $150, we can charge $100 back to the province, right? And $50 have to come from elsewhere, right? Either that's a credit card charge, or in certain cases, we can bill private insurance, okay? Now, the provincial insurance varies from province to province. So we cannot, I can't give you an answer for every province sitting right here, because they cover in various degrees and, various percentages of coverage for all kinds of different things. Like, there's no way to get around it. There's 15 different healthcare systems running around. But that's how it works, right, in a nutshell. And then, any type of charges and stuff. Now, how does that work with regards to Apple and all those guys? Charges that go through the stores are subject to their charges that aren't. And it's that simple. So charges that go through app stores and stuff end up being charged, through the stores and through those mechanisms. Charges that go against provincial insurance and stuff, they go another route. All right. So those aren't charged through app stores. Okay. Like, you don't go, they have their own ways of billing and charging that have nothing to do with Apple and Google. So that's how it works. I hope that's clear. Now, the next question in Medi-Call was, why do we see certain people in ScreenPro and certain people, in Medi-Call, et cetera? Short answer is this: we use ScreenPro for a lot of employment purposes. Like, for instance, if we need additional doctors, additional nursing staff, et cetera, for whatever endeavors we're doing, we get it from ScreenPro. So we have so much medical staff we have on hand, to handle what we think is day-to-day business, et cetera, et cetera. If there's a surge or a need, our first place to go is ScreenPro. And that's where, we will get additional services, et cetera. So if we need 10 additional nurses, we'll call ScreenPro and ask them, do you got 10 additional nurses? Send over the contract, we'll do it, the fee, et cetera. Or, if we need additional, say, medical staff for any reason, right? That's how that works. And again, in the past, one quick one, I'm going to clarify this quickly because I've been over this a lot. The concierge and Medi-Call, when we bought concierge a long time ago, we had a need to have a particular doctors on board for the COVID testing. That's why that purchase was made. Once we had the purchase Medi-Call, which serviced a different saying, we're looking at a new vertical we can get into. It came with that same facility. Okay. So concierge was redundant at that point. All right. And that's why ScreenPro picked it up, because they needed it also. And that's how that went down. So it's a historical thing. We had to have concierge to continue the COVID stuff and keep going. That was due to, regulations and different things that we had to satisfy as they evolved throughout the pandemic, and they're still evolving. Again, when we picked up Medicall, that service became redundant, so we sold it. There was no need to have it around anymore. All right. But at the same time, we still do pick up staff from Medicall. So some of those staff who are working with concierge can be, working with us via contract or something of that nature. So are we planning on rolling out the next questions around Medicall? Are we moving into new provinces? Yes. We're actively working on that right now. That's one of our first expansion plans. We were talking about this last month in this. We are actively working on expanding Medicall right now to different provinces. What are the hurdles there? Mostly it's regulatory. So the two biggest hurdles to moving into new geographic areas, one, regulations. That's the biggest one. And then two, just getting the personnel and facilities established, anything we need there. Okay. Both of those are in the works in several provinces right now. So, as soon as one of those becomes material, we can't announce it here. I've said that earlier. It'll be, in the news and you will see it. But we are working on those right now. And as soon, like I said, they'll be here as soon as we can get there. And then the next question is on expansion, are we talking to corporations and things of this nature? Absolutely. And so, we have talked to and still are talking to several corporations right now with how to roll this out and what's the most effective way to roll this out within their organizations, how to do it, etc. And we put out a news release about a couple of these not too long ago. And so one of the it's not one, but one of the groups of organizations we're talking to represents students coming in the country that need these services, and et cetera. So we're actively involved in that right now. And that came out as, in a press release, et cetera. But again, as soon as all those pieces become material, there's the real numbers, et cetera, those go out, PRs. And so, yeah, we are absolutely doing that. So it's not just, movie studios and stuff. We're actively looking as far outside the box as we can, for these pieces. Like I said, student orgs, et cetera. Those are all going in too. So we don't think that there's any limit as to where we can address these people, right? Let's keep going. So now, one other question that rolled out, and this is an interesting one, is how do we roll this out within the structures of, say, the larger institutions, government, Veterans Affairs, things like that? Well, that goes back to viability within the provinces, right? So as we roll out those provinces, those particular pieces become viable. So, for instance, we can't address, like you can't do work for a countrywide organization, say Veterans Affairs in Ontario, if we don't have the medical practitioners licensing in Ontario to do it properly. All right. So as those particular geographies open up, those, our ability to do work in those provinces for those businesses open up. Okay. Telehealth's a little bit different, but again, not much. So there's not much to consider there. Like if you're a resident of BC, you can get the telehealth all over, no problem right now, et cetera. Depending on the other geographies and what their laws are, you may or may not be, allowed to do that. So again, it's the health regulations that we have to go through and make sure we're all up to speed. As those roll out, we become more useful to different organizations of those natures. Okay, and COVID services. So real quick, I think that's it for Medicall. Let me just double check, make sure I didn't miss anything. I want to move into COVID and then move into the EV. Again, people ask for specific, financials, numbers, et cetera. I can't report those here. You'll have to get those out of the financials. That's where they come from. There's laws around that. So that's the way it is. COVID contract updates, et cetera. Yeah, there will be an update coming out as far as COVID contracts are concerned, for what we can update. So, what we have, what we've signed, what we've not signed, et cetera. We're still signing COVID contracts every day. Like I sign some, seems, multiple times a week. That hasn't stopped. So the COVID stuff, we're still signing. It's still coming. People are still signing up. The shows are still signing up. They still want it. Now, what we're not privy to and what I can't answer is, and I get a lot of, some questions around this, is Screen Actors Guild and what they're doing. We're not privy to that. Okay. So the Screen Actors Guild, just quick overview for people who ask and how this works. The Screen Actors Guild has negotiations with the various movie studios, and they're the ones that drive a lot of the COVID testing, meaning they'll sign a contract saying we've got to be tested 3 times a week, or we've got to be tested 2 times a week in this fashion, etc. That's what drives a lot of this, in addition to contracts with, say, different unions, Teamsters Union, etc., between production companies and those unions. We're not privy to those negotiations, okay, at all. So I don't know how those negotiations go. That's it. That's all. Now, again, if there is anything material that we hear, we'll tell everybody. Okay. So, okay, EV verticals. So, EV, again, we mentioned earlier in the talk, we just, a group of people just came back from Korea working on this. This one's going hot and heavy. Like the EV negotiations and everything is moving. As a business internally, this is moving faster than anything I've seen in quite some time. So we are going as fast as possible to roll these pieces out and to get the information, in everybody's hands. So what's happened? The chargers are the wall chargers and the base chargers are ahead of time. So those were in the country and being rolled out a little bit ahead. The the portable charging units are right here. Like we've got 1 or 2 of them in. The other 2 are getting caught up. A couple of them caught up in customs. So we expect those to be cleared in the next week or 2, depending on how those go. So I would say a safe bet for getting all of those rolled out and everything is probably another 2 weeks. That's probably a safe bet, maybe 3. It's just going to depend on how long it takes to get that stuff across the border. So like I said, some of it's ahead of the game. A couple of these pieces are running behind by a week or 2 in customs. But, they're coming across and it's moving faster than we anticipated as a whole. In addition to that, the apps are being converted, et cetera. And as we're rolling out those pieces, we will be announcing where we're moving into, what areas, we're servicing, what pieces we're charging with, where the installations are, how you can use it, et cetera, et cetera. So The apps are a little bit ahead. The wall chargers and the standalones are way ahead. The portables are a little bit behind. They're held, like I said, they got held up, or a couple of them got held up, but those should be dealt with very shortly. But we will keep everybody in the know as fast as we can on that. But they're overall, like I said, everything's moving faster than anticipated. As the original projections for this type of stuff had us out into the end of November and such. So the team's working hard both on the South Korean side and on the Canadian side. And like I said, overall, things are moving faster than we anticipated. And okay, quarter two. Quick question. So I've got some questions about graph blockchain in here. I'm not involved in the graph blockchain governance. Okay. So I can't speak to graph blockchain governance. So you will have to address those questions to graph blockchain. Unfortunately, I can't speak to it, as you know, they're out of our wheelhouse, so to speak, at the moment. So, all right. And again, a couple questions are coming in around specific numbers in stock and things like that. These are not pieces I can announce here. Okay. So if you're asking for a very specific financial number, I can't give it to you here. Those come out in financials, right? For everybody to see at the same time. Okay. So I've got about 5 more minutes, and then I've got to, like I said, I'm gonna have to end up just about 10 minutes early. So I have to go take somebody to a medical appointment. Okay. And then, okay, so we've been over expansion, we've been over this. Okay, financials. So here's what I can talk to, and this will probably be the last one right here. So how do we handle our financials, and you know, what can we say and what can we not say? Okay, some of the things that, like I said earlier, we can't say is specifics on contracts, specifics on financials, how it's broken down. If you want it broken down further, you know, then what the financial reports that come out, those are not things we can address here. Okay. Or asking me on any given day, and I get this one a lot. How much money do you have in the bank today? Well, one, it fluctuates. Two, you know, this is something that we report through the financials so everybody can have access to it at the same time. Okay, period. Now, the other question becomes, you know, for some of the stuff that we've rolled out in the past, you know, what do we do with it? Well, in certain cases, you know, like we mentioned graph, et cetera, DM still holds significant stake in some of these pieces, right? Because we've had it from God knows when. And at some point, you know, DM's going to, you know, at some point we have to divest or do something with it. The board always considers those. So when we do it, you know, we'll see. But is it something that's always in the, you know, the offing? Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's something that we consider. Do we want to do it now? Do we want to do it later? Do we want to wait and see what happens? You know, these type of things. So, you know, and then the rest of it, like I said, the rest of the financials are handled, you know, accounting department, investment department, et cetera. So no, we don't just leave, you know, it doesn't just sit there and rot. I believe is what, you know, people are saying. That we're actively looking in there to do things with the money to make more money, you know, in certain cases, like you know, when we're deploying cash or everything, you know, we make sure that we have enough viable capital to operate on, and the rest, we can invest, we can put it into new endeavors, et cetera. And we do have an accounting team, the CFO, that handles all of that. And then those reports are placed into the financials every quarter. So that's how we do it. So we're at the end of this. Unfortunately, like I said, I've got to end up a couple minutes early, as I do have to take off here. But thank you again for joining, and we'll be back next month. Please bring in any questions you got. Thanks, everybody.